Hey, welcome to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Arif Halaby along with Jeff Gerard on your place for news, talk, information, and holiday safety tips. Look, retirement is exciting. It's fun. It's not like your grandparents' retirement. You know, it's not sitting around, you know, chasing grandchildren with the same house coat you had on since about 8:30 this morning.
What's a house coat?
Yeah, it's that. I don't know. In Hawaii, they call them muumuus. I don't know what they call them. Is there another term, house coat? It's different, right? I mean, it's now about playing tennis. It's about playing golf. It's about walking, exercising, traveling, volunteering, working that career that you've always wanted to do, but couldn't afford because they didn't pay you anything, or it was very low pay, and your lifestyle was different. You say, I'd love to do this, but I'm already good at it, being an engineer or being this, and it just doesn't pay the same. The key, in my opinion, is to understand how money works. Now, you go, that's kind of nice. What do you mean about holiday safety tips? Because if you think you're going to retire and enjoy life, and if you make a few mistakes, a lot of people are going to do that along the way. But if you make these big mistakes in the holiday time, this is it's not a good thing. So here's what a few of those tips are. Jeff, we have seen time and again building up a life savings, retirement, college, whatever it might be. That's all wonderful. Mm-hmm. However, what happens when all of a sudden we're in a position to have our identity stolen or our bank accounts cleaned out, right?
You are right on track. And how I think that affects retirement, looking at the big picture, you know, money is one of those rare things that if you make a mistake, if it's a big enough mistake, and it can affect you for a very, very long time. Most other mistakes can probably be corrected pretty and relatively easily. But when it comes to money, what you don't have on your side and what gets removed from you a little bit is time. You know, if you get taken in a scam or someone steals most of your money in your 20s or 30s, you have some time to rebuild. But what if this is 10 minutes before your retirement? Yeah. What if somebody goes out and cleans your bank account out, or you've got all of these headaches to reconcile? You know, yeah, you've got protection with credit cards, and we're going to talk about some different things to insulate you from that, but really protecting yourself and heading that off, I think, is the key, because when it comes to your money, no one's going to look out for it as best as you can.
And you were just ready to retire, or you were just ready to buy that vacation home, and you find out your identity's been stolen. We've had it even to the place where the boyfriend, where the son of a retired couple, our clients, has a girlfriend. Nice, been a part of the family for many years, long-term girlfriend. And suddenly the lady tells me, Arif, what is this from Wells Fargo that says I'm taking a second mortgage on my house? She goes, I don't know anything about that.
Amazing.
I said, well, what happened? What do you mean? She said, well, so-and-so, the girlfriend, had her sign a bunch of forms, and she thought it was something that was just minor. Well, it turns out she put the signature page just underneath some of the others, and she signed a loan application.
Oh.
So here was the confirmation that said, oh, by the way, you're having $150,000 deposited into your bank account.
And by the way, I don't recognize that bank account.
Yes. So part of what this lady did, this crook lady, is she did a joint bank account.
Oh.
So they took the deposit of $150,000 and put it into the joint bank account. And so now this lady, who's now partners in a bank account with our older client, came in and was going to take the money. Now, that affects your retirement when suddenly you have a house payment of $150,000, and more importantly, you probably are never going to pay it back because you didn't even know it existed, or you couldn't afford to pay it back. So everything from that level of identity theft to the nuisance of trying to create this ongoing stream of using debit cards and credit cards, which we all do, except how do we avoid this heightened sense of time in the holidays? Because these little financial nuances of life that become a nuisance can become tragedy and ultimately a loss of a home. In this particular case with our client, we were actually able to file a complaint. Wells Fargo seized the money, as they did. They pulled the video, so we actually have video of this lady standing at the counter, and she had sunglasses on like she was trying to be somebody, sneaky, but we knew exactly who she was. And then she signed, and her goal was to take the money. You should see how incredibly evil something like that is.
That's the word I was going to use.
Forever, they've lived in the house for 40 or 50 years. Husband has Parkinson's, and that's how she chose to honor her relationship with the family as a girlfriend, was to take the mother's house. Unfortunately, these are not uncommon stories. These happen often. So here's some tips that I want you to watch out for through the holidays, because with it, I always say there's times of joy, amazement, and wonder, but the problem is we often wonder what the heck just happened with our latest credit card. There are more financial transactions right now, from now until the end of the year, online and in person, than just about the rest of the year combined. And think about it. You're going to buy things for people or swipe things that you didn't even plan on doing, right? It was just, I don't normally shop at that store because it's not your thing.
Right.
But for the person that you're buying the gift for, it matters. So we've got to think about that. Those transactions can really impact our ability to have money in our bank account to plan for our mortgage and our other expenses this year. So let's go over a couple of these tips, Jeff, because we have a few of them here that might be able to help.
Well, and I think the key here is to have a systematic approach to some of your holiday shopping and spending. We all have done things for many years the way we normally do things, but I want you to think for just a minute here. Some of the ways that we may be doing things are not always the most prudent ways of shopping. For instance, you may have a debit card, maybe a Visa or MasterCard debit card that's linked to your bank account, which most people do. You open a bank account, you don't get those ATM cards anymore, rarely. I think most institutions have done away with those, so they give us a Visa or MasterCard debit card. And what does that do? That just basically lets us spend our money virtually anywhere in the world that we want. It's very convenient, but it has some pitfalls to it. It's different than using a credit card, and we've covered that for a good part of an entire show in the past. If you ever want to podcast that, it's fascinating, actually. Looking at the idea that you have access to money is a wonderful thing, but let's take a look at some of the places. For instance, if you're going to use, let's just say you want to go spend some cash, right? You want to not use your card, but you want to go in and grab some cash. It's very tempting if you're at the shopping mall and you don't have your bank nearby, but you say, I want to grab some cash, so there's an ATM machine.
Sure.
And you're basically going to make a cash withdrawal, whether it's at a convenience store or a little machine right outside, maybe a kiosk. I want to caution you when you go to something like that. There are ways, trust me, there are some brilliant bad guys out there and bad girls that know how to skim your card. So putting your personal information into some of these machines that are not really monitored. There's cameras in the shopping center and whatnot, but you don't know where that machine came from, especially if it's sitting outside of maybe an accredited facility. So you want to make sure that you're not doing that. You want to go into your financial institution, go to your bank, go to your credit union, go to your community bank. Why? Because it can save you so much heartache on the back end. Yeah, it's inconvenient. You got to go find parking. You got to walk in, take a little bit of time. But trust me, when it comes to pulling cash, don't be so tempted to go to those quick places to access cash. Not to mention the fees are pretty large in some cases.
Yeah, the ATMs that are attached to some of the banks, credit unions that you go to regularly, especially if you can go inside, because there's less likelihood that they're going to be tampered with. That's where I would go and get the cash. Go inside. I know you don't like the lines. I know it's a headache. The old days of standing in line on a Friday afternoon to deposit or cash a check. Remember those days?
I do.
It doesn't exist anymore, right? Today you can take a picture of your check as long as you mail it in, and sometimes they never even have to receive it.
Right.
But you just mail it in, and the money's in your account within a couple of days. And they use a pattern of behavior, right? They look to see, this person is always depositing a check from that employer, every third Tuesday of the month, whatever it is. It's a fairly normal system. But be very careful if you're going to pull money from ATMs in these random kiosks out there, because one, the fees can be huge, but number two is they often can be fronts and scams. Okay, here's another one. If you are going to go to the gas station this time of year, gas stations are often the main source of skimming. And Jeff, you mentioned that. Tell us a little bit about what skimming is.
Well, I'm not a skimming expert, but I can tell you that what happens is, and again, it goes back to the ability for, there's an opportunity when you have something outside, a machine outside that can conduct financial transactions, you're basically hooking up to the grid and you're out in the open. I mean, think about that. Anybody can walk up off the sidewalk, nonchalant, and you know what? Here's when they would do it. Not when the gas station's empty, but maybe when there are a whole bunch of people there. They look like they're pulling up for gas. They look like they're performing a normal transaction at the pump.
Yeah, because nobody pays attention to them because everybody's there.
They're installing a very small, slim device that goes inside the area where you would insert your card, and that's a card reader. And then remotely it sends a signal or sends the information from your bank account, from your card. And what else did you do in a lot of cases? Remember that debit card we were talking about? You put in your PIN number. And all of that just went, thank you very much, over to somebody's remote location, and now they've got you.
And you know, all they have to do is have the credit card looking device with the magnetic strip from a hotel, right? You've seen those.
Yeah.
You can buy these blanks, you can get the blanks, wipe the old information. You've seen them when you go into finer hotels, as you put the little card in. Same exact thing. They can take that, they imprint any numbers if it needs to be, but more importantly, they just magnetically install that, and you can buy that device from eBay or Amazon, and it's a few $100s. You input the person's credit card, you now have the PIN number, and it acts like it. You can use it online purchases. There's no need for the printed up or the indented numbers.
And if they can put a machine inside of one of those credit card readers, do you not think they can produce a card?
That's right.
You know, now they have all that information. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I wouldn't even know where to get those devices, but somebody does. And if you think that the next layer isn't to have another ATM card to get to your bank account, think again.
Here's what they'll often do. They have a van or a car that's reasonably remotely close by, either because they look through binoculars and watch the PIN input, or because they're receiving it electronically, and sometimes it's a short distance, maybe 20, maybe 50 yards away, but not much. And in that van or that truck device, they actually have the new credit card magnetic strip input device. So they put it in. They see it, they see your number. And while you are still filling up your tank, they've swiped it, they've got the new credit card together, they have the PIN number, they hand it to Mary, Steve, or Joe, off they go to the next location, and that credit card, before you're even back in your car after getting a soda or candy bar, it is now on the way to be used. That's how dangerous some of these this time period, because you're not going to remember, did I charge again there, or was that there, was this it, or I gave the card to my teenager so she could buy something for me and her dad, right? So I want you to realize that this is the time. So how do you avoid that? Only use the gas credit cards at the gas stations. I know you want your points, I know you think that it's good for the miles. That's wonderful. This time of year, bad guys are everywhere. And there's just no way, don't even think that law enforcement can keep up with them. There's no way, and heck they can, they're just too busy.
Well, Arif, I'm going to put my gas station credit card in the credit card pump. That's great, but that doesn't protect me if there's a skimmer in there. What's the difference between that and having my actual bank card being skimmed? Number
one is every credit card has a limit. Usually it's $50 that you're responsible for, and often that's waived. If you're not irresponsible with it, and you're a victim of a crime, then they say, you know what, you're not even responsible for the $50. There's a whole set of laws, consumer protection laws, that are there guided for credit cards. They do not exist for debit cards. Debit card is like writing a check or getting some cash, putting it in your pocket. Those are two different sets of laws. In a debit card, you may be responsible for all of the money. Tough luck, you lost it, it's your fault. And it's gone today, whereas a credit card, there's a delay, they have time to investigate. In a debit card, it's taken out of your account immediately.
Right.
And if you have a mortgage payment that's supposed to hit next month, or you have a car payment that's due, or car insurance, you're stuck trying to scramble to find extra cash. God forbid you had thousands of dollars in there, and they've just taken out your life savings. So be very careful. Another option, if you say, well, Arif, I use my debit card, I track it, my credit isn't good, so I can't get a credit card, but I can use a debit card, then I want you to have two different bank accounts. I want you to have one that is hooked to your debit card, and that debit card is, minimum amounts, a few $100s, whatever. I don't want that to be linked to the other account that has the big cash. You leave that debit card at home. If you need to, you can go online, transfer money over, swipe that debit card throughout the day, get the Visa points, whatever it is you're trying to do. But don't have one card that has everything, your life's. It's like leaving the keys to your house at the front door, leaving it unlocked, and saying the jewelry is here and the fine china is over there. It's what you do when you have that debit card out and about. Be very careful if you're going to use it.
Well, I like the idea that you have two different bank accounts, and it's basically that buffer. They could still get to that account, but now you have a very small amount of money in there, and you're limiting the amount of exposure you're giving yourself to the outside world.
Yes, and since I don't do that, Jeff. I buy online. Everything I do, in fact, most of you, while you're working, we know you're shopping. We are watching. Look, they say that most people, isn't it interesting that during work hours people are buying things? All these people are at home, really? And they're just sitting on their own home computer? So most folks today are doing a big part of their shopping online. So of course that must be safe.
That's what we think, but how many times, and I know I'm guilty of this, you're looking for something and it's exactly what you're looking for. You typed it in. I mean, it could not have been a better search result in that search engine. I don't care which engine you're using. And you click on it and you go, wait a minute, that was almost too good to be true. And it's everything you wanted, or it's everything that you didn't want except the thing that you wanted after you click on that link, and it takes you to some random thing, and then all of a sudden now you've got these different links that are linking themselves, and now you're on a totally different website and you go, wow, that's not what I asked for. Well, that's kind of blatant and obvious, but there are folks out there, believe it or not, that create these mock websites, and they look so legit, they look so good, and you think you're buying from someone or from an institution or a company that is that's legit. So you plug in all of your information, your name, your address, billing information, and here comes the credit card info.
There you go.
Boom, and they've got you, and then it's too late.
Part of that that's important is for you to realize a lot of these very common websites will register names that are slightly off, misspelled. Instead of Amazon or eBay, you might switch a couple of letters, and because you're typing fast, and so what letters are most like, what's next to Y? Maybe it's EBU, right? EA. So it's a U, and it pops up, and you go, oh, it's eBay. Sometimes the companies will buy those mistaken websites, right?
On purpose.
Yeah, and they'll do that because they know you're going to mess up. People do, and they can find out, a lot of people are typing in the website incorrectly. But the bad guys also do that. And then they'll say, oh, if you're typing in da-da-da, and this comes out of Russia, China, North Korea, these are not dummies. These are people whose job it is to turn on your webcam when you're not looking. And some of these websites that you probably shouldn't be visiting, some of their job is to drop in some viruses and sit there and wait for you to enter your credit card information. One of the most common and most likely is going to be either entering the website incorrectly, the address, or using free Wi-Fi. So let's address the website a little bit more in detail. Make sure when you are logging in and you're buying something that the website on the top is what you mean it to be. Because sometimes the page will look the same, but it will say something different in the URL. And that's important to go, wait a second. So back out, erase, start over. Don't just click on the last thing that you did, because it'll take you right back to that.
I have to share something with you that happened to me a long time ago. I was logging into a website, and I don't recall all the details, but I remember picking up one of those links, taking me to what I thought was the legitimate website, and they built something called a mask. So right where you put in your username and your password, there was something laid on top of it that they built to go on top of it, but it was done ever so slightly off, and I noticed that looks a little bit different than it normally does. Had they done it perfectly, I would have put in my username and password, but it was just slightly off, so it looked like there was a bit of a shadow, and if I didn't catch that, boy, who knows what would have happened. I mean, now look, that's not my financial information, right? I wasn't logging into a bank account because we didn't have those back then. I'm going back probably 15 years, something like that. But you can see that it happens to any of us. I mean, if you're not if you don't have a keen eye for what that website should look like, and then look, the places we visit most normally, we're going to probably notice something like that. But a website you've never been to, a company where you're buying a gift because you know that Susie likes X, Y, or Z, and you want to get it for them this season, and you're kind of in a rush, and you found a great deal, and you're not looking for all those little nuances or those little mistakes. That's where they get you. I think that's the part where we've let our guard down because we're in the in the season of giving, and we want to go buy things, and we want to get it done now because our shopping has to get done. So making sure, like Arif says, you type in the exact URL or the web address, and then here's something else I want you to look for. In the top right, and this is a little bit technical, but in the top right, you see that HTTP. A lot of secure websites add the S. So make sure that there's a little verified check sign next to it or a check symbol. Make sure there's an S in that website where it says HTTPS, and you'll see that there's a difference when it comes to the website actually coming up secure. And that's a big deal. So avoid some of those sales links, some of those things on the side that look tempting because it's 40 or 50% off. Just go directly to the companies that you have vetted and that you trust.
And sometimes you're going to see these come through email links and discounts only, and watch out for Christmas sales and Black Friday. And you're going to see this. If it's too good to be true, double check it. Sometimes you're going to find these sales where companies and lost leaders, and they're trying to get you in the door and to buy something. Great, take advantage of that if it works for you. But where I want you to watch out is when some of these emails that you receive are just off slightly. Don't feel bad about logging out, starting over, coming maybe through a different browser, making sure it's the right website before you enter in that information.
I want to add something to that. Here's something that I think is kind of nerdy but fun. You want to see how tricky people are? Go directly to, I don't care if it's Yahoo, AOL, Google, go to your junk email folder.
Ah, sure.
And look at all of the emails that get filtered out by those mail providers that you don't even know about. And look at all of them and look how good they look. They're very close to the things that you're out there actually shopping for, or relationships that you actually have digitally. Somebody's out there doing that. And they get very close, but they don't quite pass the radar, so they go into your junk. But I do that just for fun once in a while and go, man, I can't believe how clever people almost were.
A lot of the institutions, Citibank, Bank of America, and Chase, they are the losers in the credit card world, right? If you're only responsible for $50, who's responsible for the rest?
Right.
Usually it's the institution. So they created a virtual credit card, and this virtual credit card that we know of is at least by Citibank and B of A. Here's a few other, and there's a few other companies that exist. They provide the same protection from fraud, and they allow chargebacks. But here are some of the downsides. They only exist for a period of time. So it's not your entire credit history. It's just a block here. And they only work online, but they can make returns difficult if the card no longer exists. So it's a virtual credit card. Look at it as a way, if you're not sure, if you've been a victim before, and you can kind of lock out and put in a box, just like we were talking about with the debit card, right? You can have a debit card attached to this savings account. Do not allow it to be linked to the others. And that is the place that you might charge for the holidays, when there's just this Wild West in the online world and all the things happening. You can kind of contain your losses in a little box. Okay, when we're going to come back, I'm going to touch on this a little bit more. I want to get into the free Wi-Fi, some things to be careful there, and then I think we also have a little bit. Well, let's finish up with free Wi-Fi, Jeff. Free Wi-Fi, be very careful if you're going to an institution. They will bring up pages that look very similar, and you're going to see this at coffee shops specifically. Especially you're going to see this at bookstores. Those two places, it's easy to make a landing page that says, click here to log on. You are now, because all you got to do is cut and paste, right? Except you now are attached to the bad guy's Wi-Fi. And you can still go to your normal shopping, but you're going through their router and their scam system, right? And they're going to capture everything that you do.
That's right. And I can kind of give you some insight to this. If you ever have gone to a hotel and used their Wi-Fi, it's not like you just get a username, password, and then, or the password to the Wi-Fi, and then you can just start browsing freely. You actually have to go through their portal. Well, that same technology is used by thieves and crooks out there, where they develop something very similar, but they've actually figured out a way to hack in. So basically, if you go to these coffee shops, bookstores, where a lot of people sit down and they're going to be there for a while, people know that they're trolling these areas. Someone goes in, they gain access as if you and I would, and then they figure out a way to hack that. Now they've set up something to where they control that experience, and that people that log in, they only need to target 1 or 2 people. Now you've logged in, you've done maybe some shopping as you're taking a little break for coffee, because shopping's exhausting, right? So you sit down and you're taking a little breather before you go to the next shop, and then you found this other deal because you got this email. Great, wonderful. But now, in the meantime, you've put in bank account information, credit card information. Just be careful. You can use it to browse, but I would not make any financial transactions while you're on that public Wi-Fi. I don't care if it's a restaurant, a bookstore, or a well-known coffee shop. They are all out there for the public, and anybody that can get in has an opportunity to hack that.
All right, we'll be back in just a minute. Thanks, Jeff Gerard. I'm Arif Halaby. We're going to talk about free colleges coming up. Did you actually know that there are numerous colleges, dozens in the United States, where tuition is free? Imagine that. If you're starting to look for that senior, maybe the junior in high school, what are they going to do for their senior year? Maybe their college visitations? You might want to consider some of these when we come back. Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Gerard on AM 1220 KHTS.